All right, so welcome everyone, and welcome to the Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube live session. And this is number 78. So I do these live sessions every Sunday, every week. So this is week number 78. We're getting close to 100, and obviously 100 and so 50, 52 weeks in a year. So 104 will be 2 years that I'm doing this live session. So we're getting close. So session number 38. And tonight I'm going to talk about the top 7 mistakes during the validation process. And as I said, I'll post the PDF document in my Telegram group. And the PDF will be protected by a password, and the password I will be revealing in the end of the live session. So you guys that are in the live session, you will have the privilege to download the PDF with the top 7 mistakes. And if you are not part of my Telegram group as well, I will paste in Facebook. So the link that I put in Facebook is for you to join my Telegram group. And also I'm going to paste in YouTube. And then those ones watching on Instagram, after the live session, you can go to my bio. And I believe I'm just going to double check in my bio. You will find a link tree. So once you click on my link tree, you will find, where's that? You will find my, where's that? Sorry. Yeah, you will find the link in my bio. There's a link tree, and then a few boxes below, you will find the button to join my Telegram group. Okay, so for those that don't know me, my name is Gerson Ida. I'm the founder of www.engineersinaustralia.com, a website that I created last year to talk about and share my experience and my knowledge about the validation process, the engineering qualification validation process here in Australia. And I also share some information about the day-to-day of engineering here in Australia. I talk about other subjects like workplace health and safety, environmental management, and I have a special series that I talk about how you can get your first professional job in Australia. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the top 7 mistakes. And the first one, what? Let's see if you can guess here. I'm going to show here. The first one is about complex engineering problem, a project, or a task. So the issue here is when you don't really, when you're writing your career episodes, you don't really choose a complex engineering problem. And that's very serious because the booklet, the Migration Skills Assessment booklet, is very clear. When you're choosing your experience to write your career episode, the engineering experience needs to be complex. So, and each engineer will know in their own category. If you're a civil engineer, or a mechanical engineer, or a chemical engineer, mechanical engineer, production engineer, what is complex within your field? There are many things that engineers they do, but few things are simple, other things are complex. So you need to demonstrate a complex engineering problem or a complex engineering task. And why is that? Engineers Australia is going to evaluate your competency against the engineering degree. And here in Australia, engineering degree, they obviously follow a curriculum and they are complex by nature. So Engineers Australia needs to be satisfied that your qualification and your experience, either academic experience or work experience, covers the complex engineering problems or tasks or projects. All right, so I have my notes there. So what I'll do, I think it's easier. I'm going to quickly put in there. All right, so mistake number one again. Complex engineering problem, project, or task is when you guys, when you choose your experiences, you don't really choose the right experience in terms of complexity. Mistake number two. So mistake number two is forgetting to include evidences to support your incompetency claims. Again, in the booklet, is very clear. Engineers Australia is asking you to make sure that you attach enough evidences to support your the claims in your category. For example, if you are applying for a professional engineer category, there are a lot of examples that you need to use to demonstrate your competencies as a professional engineer. And a part of those examples is the enough evidences to support your claims. For example, pictures, diagrams, photos, calculations, formulas, tables. So all of those things you will need to be able to demonstrate and attach in your career episode to support your claims of your competencies. So that's certainly very, very important. Do you guys have any idea of any other supporting documentation that you guys could potentially be using? So any feedback in the chat? I'll just have a look if I've got any comments in the chat. And if you have a particular question about a question that you have, perhaps you are doing already your CDR, your competency demonstration report. So if you have any questions, yeah, put in the comments, and I will be more than happy to try to answer it to you. Okay, mistake number three. So mistake number three is when you guys, you forget to reference those evidences. So what is that, Gerson? Not referencing those evidences. So this is when you kind of when you put in your career episodes the pictures, diagrams, tables, photos, formulas, calculations, and you, in the narrative of your paragraph, you actually forget to put the reference. And why is that important? Because Engineers Australia needs to know if you were the one that actually created that picture or table or diagram, for example, or if you got from somewhere else. Let's say, for example, that you are trying to establish a calculation, and then in the calculation you are referencing to a diagram, and this diagram came from a technical specification. So when you attach that diagram that came from a technical specification, you need to be very clear in your paragraph that that diagram came from a technical specification. You've got to put the name and number and the page, because you are giving credits to whoever was the author of that diagram. In this case, technical specification. If you don't reference that diagram in your paragraph, Engineers Australia will understand that you are saying that you were the one that put together that diagram. And if they search on the internet, they're probably going to find that diagram, and then they're going to say potentially that that diagram came from a technical specification and you did not reference, and you were trying to use as your own work. And when you do that, it's categorized, or potentially could be categorized, as plagiarism. So don't run the risk. If you're using pictures, diagrams, tables, formulas that you did not do yourself, you need to make sure that you put the references. So I'm just going to quickly put in that because it's certainly very, very important. So mistake number 3, not referencing those evidences. All right, so let's have a look how the PDF is taking shape. So that's how the PDF is taking shape. And that's again the link in Telegram where I'm going to put the PDF. So mistake number 1, mistake number 2, and mistake number 3. So now let's do a little bit of interaction. So what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to actually, I think, take a picture of this PDF. So I'm going to take a picture now. So let's see. I'm going to take a picture of mistake number 3. And now actually I'm going to take a picture of the title. So that's it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this picture in my Instagram. I'm going to have a quick post. And I'm going to ask you a question. Please name one mistake that most engineers make during the validation process. All right, I'm posting that. I'm going to share now. Yeah, I just shared. Yeah, as you can see, I just posted now in my Instagram. And what I would like you guys to do, I've got a few people in the Instagram. I would like you to make a comment in my post. I'm going to wait until probably tonight, 10 p.m. And I would like to see a few comments in my post. I asked actually a question. What is one of the mistakes that most engineers they make when they are doing their validation process? So if you can put in the comment one of the mistakes, or could be, doesn't need to be the one of the 7 mistakes that I'm talking about. It could be another mistakes that that you know. So if I have some interaction there, I will then post this PDF. I'm going to make this document as a PDF, and then I'm going to post in my Telegram group. Okay, so let's talk about mistake number 4. So mistake number 4 is use translation services. That's very common. That's a very common mistake. So a lot of people, they actually ask me the question, Gerson, let's say I've got some audiences from Colombia and they speak Spanish, and they ask me the question, Gerson, I feel more comfortable to write my career episodes in Spanish. Can I do that? Write in Spanish and get somebody to translate to English. So this is a very serious mistake, guys. Obviously, you can do whatever you want to do, but I strongly encourage you guys not to do it, because plagiarism is when somebody else writes your report on your behalf. So even though you wrote in Spanish, for example, and then you ask somebody else to translate in English, You got to remember that English, your report in English, is part of your assessment in terms of communication by Engineers Australia. So if you are not the one that is writing the report in English, you got to be careful, because Engineers Australia, they use very advanced plagiarism detection software, and they'll probably figure out that you did not write yourself the report in English. One, because probably the report will be very well written, and let's say that your English test results are not good. You got them just a minimum to apply for the validation, let's say 6 in IELTS in all of the 4 bands, and then you present a report that's near perfect. So Engineers Australia will see that your English test is average, kind of just proficient. You got 6, and then your report is very well written. So it kind of becomes a little bit suspicious. So just gotta be careful. But you can write in your own language, let's say in Spanish, and then try to translate later on in yourself. Yeah. Also, don't use Google Translator, because usually those platforms and those tools, they, how can I say, they leave a little bit of a track. So when you copy and paste from Google Translate, it will probably give a little bit of a DNA that you got from Google. So I would strongly encourage you guys not to use Google Translate. Try to translate yourself. If you have questions about the translation, yeah, ask somebody to read and perhaps give you some comments, but don't ask somebody else to translate for you. Don't use Google Translate, because it's really not worthwhile, the risk of being caught by plagiarism. Okay, so that is mistake number 4. And do you have difficulties in writing in English? Are you planning to write in your own language and then translate a little bit later on, or what do you think? I'm just going to check if I've got any comments. None in Facebook, none in YouTube and Instagram. No comments in Instagram as well. Yeah, that's all right. So we're going to go to mistake number 5. So recapping, mistake number 1, when you don't use complex engineering problem, a project, or a task. Mistake number 2, when you forget to include evidences to support your competency claims. Mistake number 3, when you do not reference those evidences. And mistake number 4, when you use a translation service. Mistake number 5, it's a very common mistake. When you don't really use enough words. So why is that, Gerson? I saw in the booklet that the minimum number of words is about 1,000, and the maximum number of words is about 2,500 words. I'd say that especially because our English is not very good, for you to be able to demonstrate all the 16 competencies just using the minimum words, 1,000 words, or close to 1,000, let's say 1,200 words, 1,400 words, you're probably not going to be very objective. And you got to remember that you have 16 competencies that you need to demonstrate in your career episode. So when I did mine many years ago, I used pretty much the maximum number of words that I was allowed to, 2,500 words for each career episode. And why is that? Because I was trying to demonstrate as many competencies as I could, as many number of competencies, of the same competency as well, in the career episode. So my career episode was very strong and was very solid. So I certainly encourage you guys, and that's what I teach my mentoring students to do, for them to write very strong and very solid career episodes where you can write what I call optimized paragraph, where in 2,500 words you can demonstrate all the 16 competencies, and not just once but many, many times as well. So mistake number 5, when you do not use enough words. When you don't use enough words, your career episode usually is a bit shallow, and the demonstration of competencies, they can be a little bit superficial. So you run the risk of some of the competencies that you think is demonstrating your competency. Engineers Australia may not really approve that as part of your competency. And do you guys online, are you guys already writing your career episodes? In what stage are you in the validation process? You still kind of are reading and studying the booklet, or still deciding on the experience? Or have you already started writing your career episode? I've got a question here from Vinicius. And what translation can I use to translate my certificates? Can it be simple or just sworn? Well, a very good question, Vinicius, and thanks for coming back. We certainly had a good chat a couple of weeks ago. The translation, the booklet tells you that you have to use an authorized translator to translate any document that is not in English language. So if you are in your own country, not here in Australia, you may have your sworn-in translators or authorized translators. So you can use those. A lot of people, they ask me the question if they need to, it's mandatory to use a NATI translator. A NATI translator are those translators that are here authorized in Australia. Engineers Australia, they do not mandate that you use a NATI translator. What I can tell you though is that if you haven't translated your documents yet, I encourage you guys to search and look for a NATI translator. One, because the cost is probably going to be similar. Pretty much sure that the cost of translation in your own country is not cheap. And if you can get a NATI translator, I think when they translate your document, it's going to be more aligned to the Australian English as well. Especially if you get a NATI translator that is already used to translate engineering documents. So a lot of the NATI translators, they are already used to translate engineering documents. And if you get those ones, they're probably going to translate in a way that the Engineers Australia assessor is going to understand a little bit better. So that's my advice to you guys. But obviously, you don't need to. It's not really mandatory for you to use a NATI translator, but it needs to be an authorized translator. Okay, so let's have a look at mistake number 6. So mistake number 6, engage a CDR writer. So that is certainly a big mistake. I can tell you that's probably a fatal mistake, a very critical mistake. If you do that, there are lots of companies that when you search for Google or search in Facebook, whatever, you will find CDR writers. And this is a very serious mistake, guys. I do not recommend you guys to engage those CDR writers because it is plagiarism. It breaches the Engineers Australia Code of Ethics, and you will get caught. So Engineers Australia, again, I said they use very advanced plagiarism detection softwares. And if you get somebody else to write your career episode, you will get caught. And nowadays, Engineers Australia is banning up to 3 years. So depending on the severity of the plagiarism, Engineers Australia can ban you up to 3 years. So it's not worthwhile, guys. Obviously, writing 3 career episodes of 2,500 words and each, and writing your summary statement and preparing your CPD. It's a lot of work. It's not complex. The process is simple. When you follow the booklet, it's got 6 steps, very simple, but unfortunately, it's not easy. You will find that you need a lot of work, you need a lot of time, but you are going to become an engineer here in Australia. So obviously, it's not free. You need to put effort, you need to put time, you need to put dedication. So if you want a free and easy, let's say, way to become an engineer in Australia, obviously there are some risks. If you engage one of those companies, you run the risk of being caught by plagiarism and being banned for 3 years. So I certainly don't really recommend you. You can appeal, but it's going to cost money. It's going to give you stress. It's going to give you frustration. It's going to take time. I have already received many messages from engineers that unfortunately they were caught by plagiarism and they were asking my help to fix the problem. And I don't even give consultancy even for those ones that are doing everything right. Imagine if I will give consultancy to whoever did something wrong. I'm not going to do that. So it's not worthwhile. It can take a little bit of time, can take dedication and effort, but it's worthwhile. Once you get your validation by your own merits in Australia, it certainly gives you, obviously, that feeling of accomplishment. But obviously, you guys are adults. I'm not here to tell you what you do and what you cannot do. You do whatever you want to do. You just need to be aware of the consequences if you get caught by plagiarism. All right, that was mistake number 6. I'm going to just and I was going to talk. I was talking to you that it costs money and it costs time. So the appeal or the revision process in Engineers Australia, there's the informal review that's going to cost you about $285 plus GST, and it will take probably 2 to 3 months until Engineers Australia can review your application. And that's the informal appeal. And if it's still not coming with the result that you wanted, you can then have a formal appeal that then is going to cost you about $540 plus GST, and it can take up to 8 or 9 months. So all up, it can take more than 1 year for the revision process if you're doing the informal and the formal appeal. So it's certainly a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of stress as well. Okay, and the last mistake that I put to you guys, what did I say here? Yeah, that's the experience versus ANZ SEO. And I'll have a look at the Instagram post, see if I've got any interaction there. Where is my post? So I can share. I can share the PDF in the. I've got few likes there, but I don't have any comments. So if I don't have any comments, I'm not going to post the PDF. Just going to post the PDF to my students in my VIP group. So come on, guys. I've got few people in Instagram and a couple of people in Facebook. So after the live session, I'm going to wait until 10 p.m. and then you can go to the post and put your comment. All right, experience versus ANZ SEO. ANZ SEO is Australia, New Zealand standard competency of occupations. So that's really, really important, and that's a big mistake. I've seen so many Engineers Australia, they rejected their career episodes because when they were writing their career episodes, they chose the wrong experience. And why is that? Because sometimes when you are working, or when you were working as an engineer in your own country, sometimes as an engineer there, whatever you did does not really match with the definition of ANZ SEO here in Australia. In other words, what you did in your country does not match with what engineers they do here in Australia. And then if you choose that experience to write in your career episode, when Engineers Australia assessors, they read your career episode and your experiences, they will give you a feedback saying that the experience that you chose is not equivalent to, for example, if you are a mechanical engineer, is not equivalent to a professional mechanical engineer here in Australia. Please rewrite your career episode, paying attention to the definition of ANZ SEO. So I'll see what I have here. ANZ SEO occupation definition is part of the Australian government. It is from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and the Department of Home Affairs or Immigration Department, they use that definition as part of their immigration. And Engineers Australia, they also use the same definition to define what an engineer of a particular field they need to do. So if you are a civil engineer, you will see there that ANZ SEO definition talks about when you're planning or designing or calculating engineering work in terms of design, in terms of bridges, dams, infrastructure, water treatment, soil mechanics, etc., etc. So it's pretty much the heavy engineering or the infrastructure engineering. I'm a civil engineer. I graduated in Brazil, and in Brazil as a civil engineer, I worked in many, many projects. I built and I refurbished, for example, a very common job for civil engineers in Brazil is to refurbish houses, is to refurbish shops. And if you use that experience in your career episode, I'm afraid to say that Engineers Australia is more likely not to accept that experience as a professional civil engineer. Because here, refurbishment of houses, refurbishment of shops is for builders. And builders, they obviously a different profession. They're not civil engineers. So that's one very classic example of an activity that engineers or civil engineer can do, let's say in Brazil, but they don't do here in Australia. So you gotta really pay attention, read very carefully the definition in ANZ SEO, and make sure that you align your experience according to that definition. Do you have any particular question about the type of work that you did in your own country and you're trying to, or you're thinking about using here in Australia? Because depends on what you're doing or what you did. Another very classic example for civil engineers, for example, is I'm talking about civil engineer because I don't know what sort of engineer are you. Perhaps, can you put in the comments what sort of engineer are you? Are you a civil engineer, a mechanical engineer, industrial engineer, environmental engineer? I'm talking about civil engineer because I'm a civil engineer, so I can talk about that. A lot of things that another activity or job that civil engineers they do in Brazil is to implement quality system in job sites, and that's a lot of civil engineers that did that. I did that as well. But here, if you use that experience in your career episode, it's probably not going to be a very good experience for civil engineers. Usually, civil engineers they don't do that implementation of quality systems. So it could be a production engineer. It could be more probably a technologist. So you got to be also very, very careful. Yeah, Vinicius. Yeah, thank you, Vinicius. You're a civil engineer. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's certainly it's very critical, and I would like to advise you guys spend some time planning what experience you're going to choose to write your career episode. Don't choose very quickly. Have a brainstorming session, list all your experiences, and spend quality time choosing what experience you're going to write in your career episode. Because if you choose the wrong experience, you will spend a lot of time writing your career episode. You're going to spend a lot of time trying to address the competencies. You're going to spend a lot of time writing your summary statement. And then when you submit your application, Engineers Australia, if you chose the wrong experience, Engineers Australia will most certainly reject your experience and your career episode, and you have to rewrite everything again. All right, yeah, thanks, Flavi. Civil, got Tatis. She put a comment or a question in Instagram. She's saying tasks related with the structural design is going to be validated as civil engineer or as a structural engineer. Yeah, that's certainly a very good question, Tachis. You can actually put both. So I've seen some civil engineers that they used structural design as part of their civil engineer. So the category that you're going to choose and the occupation that you're going to choose is going to depend on your conversation with your migration agent as well. So your migration agent, if you can apply for either civil engineer or structural engineer, your migration agent will probably going to be able to tell you or advise better, especially because I'm not a migration agent, so I can't really provide you migration advice. But your migration agent can advise you which category is going to be better, a civil engineer or a structural engineer, because they know what occupation are in the lists or what occupations potentially could be better for you to apply for your migration if you are obviously planning to apply for migration. But if you are a civil engineer, you can validate a civil engineer using your structural design experience. I don't believe Engineers Australia will say that it's not going to validate you because you just have a structural design experience. So, but if you just have a structural design experience, and if you want to apply as a structural engineer, well, then it's an advantage for you because you have the experience as a structural engineer. You just need to probably be a little bit careful, and I'm going to talk to you about my experience here. Civil engineers, they are very versatile here in Australia. They can do civil engineering, they can also do structural design. If you get validated as a structural design, perhaps you get a little bit how can I say, not very flexible, not with a lot of flexibility, because then you are validated as a structural design, structural engineer. If you're validated as a civil engineer and you have experience in structural design, you probably, for you to get a job, is probably a little bit broader, because you can either do structural design, or you can also work as a civil engineer. All right, let's say what else we've got here. And I think that's pretty much it. I said I was going to talk about the top 7 mistakes, and these are the top 7 mistakes. So I'll quickly recap with you guys. So those ones that arrive a little bit late. So the mistake number 1 that I said, when you don't really use a complex engineering problem, a project, or a task. Mistake number 2, when you forget to include evidences to support your competency claims. Mistake number 3, when you forget to reference those evidences. Mistake number 4, when you use translation service and you do not write yourself. Mistake number 5, when you don't really use enough words. You use the minimum or close to the minimum number of words. Mistake number 6, when you engage a CDR writer. So that's a very critical mistake. You can be banned for up to 3 years. And mistake number 7, experience versus ANZ SEO, which means when you choose experiences that they really don't match with the ANZ SEO. And I just would like to advise you guys that early next year, I'm going to run another workshop, free workshop. As you know, few times a year, I run my free workshop, and probably is going to be in February. I just finished the last workshop in November, December. So I'm just going to probably run another free workshop in February. So if you're not really registered yet to my website or to the previous workshops, I'm going to leave yeah, thanks Elena in Facebook. You are bioengineer, so very good. Must be very difficult. I don't know what a bioengineer you guys do, but it must be something really, really interesting. So I paste in the comments in Facebook and YouTube the link for you to register to the free workshop. Usually is 1 week of online videos and live sessions. If you are on Instagram, if you go to my bio, the link in my bio, the first or one of the buttons is for you to register to the free workshop. You just got to make sure that once you submit your registration, you will receive an email, and you need to confirm your registration. All right. Any other question before I finish? If not, please remember that you've got until 10 p.m. tonight to make some comments in that post in Instagram. And then if I've got few comments, I will create a PDF. And I'm going to give you the password for the PDF. So the password, I'm going to write here. So the password for the PDF is what was tonight? Tonight was about the top 7 mistakes. So it's going to be top 7 mistakes. So this is the password for the PDF. So top 7 mistakes, all in small letters, no space. So if I have some comments in my post in Instagram, I'm going to create this PDF, and I'm going to place in my Telegram group. And the password is going to be top 7 mistakes. All right, guys. I would like to thank you guys very much for your time and participation. And next Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Brisbane time, I'm going to be here with Live 79. Thank you very much, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.